Hey, Gloria.
Hey.
We got to stop meeting like this.
She's got puppies.
Okay.
Hush.
Hey, Pop. Hey. Don't eat me alive. So I printed them and got on the road to Juliette because I wanted to give y'all's. And I went to Amber's first, and I'm just going down the road. Let me find you. Just have my notes. Okay, you're 32. You're the second highest that I've tested.
I was afraid of that.
I haven't had a chance. I just saw that number. This is measuring total chromium. So you have 12.2 total chromium. 9.8 of it's hexavalent. I don't know if this is chromium 0 or chromium 3, but it might be chromium 0. But this is 490 times over the California public health limit.
I guarantee you that's what happened to Casey. I knew when he died it wasn't fine. I knew when everybody on this road was dying it wasn't damn fine. And I guarantee you they didn't test none of them damn wells.
You're not drinking the water, right?
No. I got bottled water in there and I got gallon water and I got all that. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing for us. All right, we appreciate it.
Bye, Gloria.
If I find pictures of my light out there.
There's no poisoned water in God's kingdom. And God doesn't wish that the people of the earth or God's creation would drink that water. Over and over again, we're promised living, clean water. To keep water clean is to live into the gospel of Jesus Christ.
How you doing, Marvin? Good to see you. Good to see you.
You can just take a survey after you sign in. There's a place right here and a place right here to sign on paper.
Plant Shear is the largest coal burning facility in the Western Hemisphere, right? It's certainly the biggest one in the country. Everyone that is living within an area of about 2-mile radius of the plant property receives their drinking water from private wells that are in the same aquifer that coal ash is submerged 75 feet into. Federal rules came down in 2015 that required all of these electric utilities to have to start putting monitoring wells around their plant property and disclosing the information publicly, right, on their website. And a few months after they installed those wells, they started buying up property adjacent to the plant. And that's the first time that our organization really started looking into this. And the stuff that we found in those tests were certainly not things that we would want to drink. Aluminum, mercury, arsenic, barium, boron, cobalt, lead, manganese, strontium, sulfate, and fluoride. This can cause cancer, urologic issues, reproductive issues. It can delay mental growth in children and stunt physical growth. Cause gastrointestinal issues, on down the line. The most concerning thing that we're finding in drinking water wells is a chemical or a heavy metal called hexavalent chromium. There's no federal standard for hexavalent chromium on its own. There's 2 states in the union that have applied limits to hexavalent chromium. Does anybody know a movie called Aaron Brockovich? So because of the Brockovich case, California put a limit on the amount of hexavalent chromium that could be acceptable in drinking water. That limit is 0.02 parts per billion. We found as high as 10.4 parts per billion in Juliette. That's 505 times the California limit. Yes, sir.
Have you tested any wells on Danes Ferry Road?
Yes, sir.
Are they good or bad?
The most contaminated well that I've tested is on Banks River.
Most of the contaminated ones on Banks Ferry Road?
Have you tested any on McCracken Street?
I think I've tested the majority of houses on practice.
This district here, JULIETTE probably brings in more tax money than any district in Monroe County. So why can't they use some of that Georgia Power tax money to build water lines?
Well, the biggest problem.
Will, that's right, will.
The biggest issue for bringing water up here is the amount of the distance he was talking about. You're talking about $150,000 for every mile of water line. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands just to get it in the area.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And
Well, tell me about Plant Camellia down here, and y'all lost the water permit, and y'all could have drawn water out of the Oak River.
Well, and that would have been a $15 million project to get that plant rehabbed to, to draw in water.
That's right, to save a few lives. The well water's now causing cancer.
If you put money value on everything, how much money value is on one life?
I didn't say I wasn't willing to do it, sir. That's not really fair to say, hey, right now is just when I'm learning. I came here tonight to listen and to learn.
Yes, sir. He cared enough to show up and listen to y'all.
Thank you for this.
This is the start of the conversation, right? This is the beginning.
My dad helped to build Georgia Power in the 80s, and ever since they constructed that plant, we've known that it's been not good really for this community, but it was a huge employer in this community.
I think Georgia Power has positively impacted the community, the amount of taxes that go towards, the community and what that money is used for. But now I think people are starting to understand that, what amount of money makes any water contamination worth it.
About 1880, the very first coal-fired electric generating plants were started early on. Even back in the UK, they recognized the fact that coal ash is really bad. They had to stop the issue of that coal ash flying around and people breathing it in and getting in their eyes, etc. So they came up with, which all of us would, you say, well, we need to stop the stuff from flying around, well, let's get it wet. And obviously the more of it you create, you end up realizing, well, we need to dig a pit and put it in there and keep water on top of it, and then we dump it in there, it gets wet, and we're all good. And that practice from the early 1900s has continued on to the present day.
So you said you've been here since
2013.
Do you drink the tap water or drink bottled water?
I drink tap water like it's going out of style.
Okay. You cook with it too? I know you haven't been to the meetings, but do you have a general idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it?
Somewhat, I've been reading what Pam's been putting on the JULIETTE news. Me and my husband both are kind of like upset about it, because if that's the case for me, I've never used a hysterectomy. We're pretty upset because we never got to have a kid together. Yeah. And then we don't understand why, because we both have children with other people. And then all of a sudden, we can't have none together.
Do you have any other health issues, or is that kind of...
I have 2 tumors on my thyroid as well.
Have they done any blood work on you for heavy metals?
No, they have not.
You got insurance?
Mm-hmm.
You need to ask them to.
Okay.
Can you help me turn that on cold? What we know and what we can prove, the problem is that ash pond, this is the aquifer, right? The bottom of that ash pond is submerged about 25 feet into that aquifer. There's no liner, right? There's nothing protecting it. So that's the same aquifer that you're drawing your drinking water from, right?
It's well established that coal ash is toxic. It's well established that some of the heavy metals can either dissolve or move rapidly through water systems, and is readily known that wet coal ash in contact with an aquifer contaminates the entire aquifer.
And so what we're taking samples of, this is for hexavalent chromium, this is for sulfate, and this is for like nickel, lead, mercury, and all your typical heavy metals, okay? Some of these people are sick because they're just sick, but you know, when you hear out of 90-ish houses that I've tested, and well over 50% of the people have some sort of chronic illness that, according to symptoms and what I've researched on toxicology of these things, could be linked to some of these coal ash constituents.
My daddy, he lives right over here off of Lee King.
Yeah.
Well, his place, he passed away at 15, he had lung cancer.
Really?
And it got in his bones and lymph nodes, and he just died almost instantly once they told him he had that.
I don't know. I mean, seems like everywhere that I'm going, people are either living at the house are sick, or their neighbors are sick, or you know, their dog, cat, whatever. Everybody's sick. Everybody's sick.
Hey y'all, I'm exhausted. How are y'all?
We're doing good. You need something else to drink?
Not your water if you've got 17.
Hey, let me tell you, we have our new machine.
Okay, good. High five. It's bittersweet because a lot of these people have welcomed me into their homes and, you know, broken bread with me and introduced me to their friends and to their family, but under circumstances that I'd really rather not have met them under, which is, you know, they want answers to, you know, why is my daughter born with cancer, or, you know, why does my son have cancer, or why am I dying, kind of thing. And, you know, while I'm not able to give them all the answers, right, I'm able to start giving them more answers than what they had before. You got any health issues?
Yeah. I've had breast cancer, colonoscopy 2 years ago, and they got 6 polyps off.
How do I turn on the cold water? Okay.
And I don't know if this is water, but with me, I've been getting like random, like skin
Rashes?
Like, yes, like here, I'll get them like in my hairline.
Yeah, that's you and everybody else.
When I went to Emory for my pituitary tumor, they were all like trying to figure out how, pretty much where it came from, because the type I have, they said they don't normally find until you're in your 50s or 60s, because it's just a slow growing tumor. But when I had mine, it was 2.3 centimeters. I mean, I went up there to see the neurosurgeon at like the middle of January, and within 3 weeks I was having surgery to have it removed. They're still, like I said, they still were trying to figure out what caused it to grow so fast.
You got a turbocharger at that well.
On January 2nd, I had an MRI done, and it showed concerns for sarcoma, which is a very rare cancer. And then, last week I had a CT scan, and there's 4 nodules in my lung. We don't know what they are yet. But yeah.
I mean, I know you can't tell, Fletcher, but how long do you think it's been in the water, say, around here?
Decades.
Think it's been that long?
Yeah.
So I've probably been drinking it for 14 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy to think about that.
Regardless of, you know, the source, or whether or not we're able to prove beyond any shadow of any doubt that like the same stuff that's leaking out of those ponds in the monitoring well is the same thing that's showing up in the well is actually from, you know, it's more that the stuff that is in the well, regardless of where the source is killing people.
Are you familiar with what's going on with the contaminated water?
Yes.
Are y'all familiar with the groundwater issues we're having out here?
I've heard.
Okay. This meeting will inform you of everything you need to know about what's going on.
Okay.
I can tell you, because it's my personal well, mine's contaminated.
Yours is contaminated?
Yes, and I live just down the street right here.
Great. So that probably means ours is too.
Us two will be there. He developed a very rare form of leukemia 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we don't know.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I've done.
Bad.
I can tell you, I've done my own personal testing on mine. I have not got the Riverkeeper's water test back yet, but my personal testing shows that I have contaminants.
Yes, we know. I mean, our land, we have 60 acres, borders Georgia Power, you know.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Are you familiar with what's going on with the local water?
What?
Are you familiar with what's going on with the local water?
My husband's retired from plant share.
Okay.
So I know all about Georgia Power and all that good stuff down there going on with the plant and everything.
Yep. Would you be interested in coming to a meeting where we can explain what's going on?
I've already seen the meetings and Paul the post on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's just hard to believe that you would allow things to go like that if you know that it's contaminating your neighbors. As soon as I found out the issue, my first thoughts were, what can I do to fix it, and who do I have to talk to? I need more information. So I made sure whatever I had to do, I was at those meetings.
We all have young kids, and I know John has 5 and I have 4, and I haven't got my water test back yet, but I'm close to the area with all the red, so it's especially concerning to me that my girls have been drinking that for 5 years.
How can they choose one plant to make them fix it correctly and don't make the other plants do it?
Because of people like y'all in this room. We know that public pressure, like what y'all are doing tonight, changed the plan at Plant Branch. Their plan was to leave it in place there.
You know, we decided to accept their plan to cap this particular coal ash pond in place. We accepted their plan. If they wanted to excavate that and line it, and they presented that, that would have been something that we could have voted on and made a decision. It would be, so I imagine probably another $1 billion, maybe 2, to do that. It's so large. But that was not the plan that they wanted to move forward with. The EPD is making the decision on that, and if the EPD affirms that that's the way to go, then that will be what happens.
Even though Georgia Power made the request just to cap it off and not put a liner?
Our job is to make sure that they're in compliance.
So how do we throw a wrench in that and stop that plan in light of all this new evidence that's come out?
Yeah, the EPD will make the decision. So it's the EPD that's your next stop.
He's charged with making sure that their plans are not only going to be in compliance, but in good faith protecting the people of Georgia. And he thinks his only role is to provide ratepayer money for whatever plan that Georgia Power wants to put out. We're running out of options to fight this.
All right, we're ready to rock.
Georgia Power has applied for permits to close the ash pond. The House bill and the Senate bill that was just introduced, that will require them to put it into a lined facility, take that ash and put it into a lined facility.
We will get some folks that will help us today, right? But we are going to get a lot of folks that say, well, we need to consider the facts. Here are the facts.
The federal government does not treat coal ash as hazardous waste, even though it's full of known carcinogens and heavy metals and very toxic material. The utility industry is lobbied heavily against regulation, right? Because of that, you have a lot of laws that are aimed at not regulating the utility. One being, it's cheaper to dump coal ash into a landfill here than it is household garbage. So while all these other utilities are excavating their ash, instead of storing it on site at those plants away from the water in a liner, they're importing it to Georgia.
Some legislators will want to pull you off to the side and talk. If you get turned around, this is the House side and this is the Senate side.
You've been given this information?
No,
okay, will you take it, please?
Oh, I believe so.
Okay, all right.
I
know you know because we've been emailing you and calling you and talking to you about our wells.
I've been working with the representative.
I'm just dealing with the coal ash issue. Yeah, all right.
We have the report with us. We'd like you to have that.
Okay. Thank you, big man.
Big concern for me, especially because we have 4 little girls and we've been drinking this water and.
Mine was not at their desk.
Mary something, but she won't see me. But she says she's not my district. I said that doesn't make any difference. I want her vote.
That's right.
Y'all on a well.
We are, and there's no access to public water.
Have they offered to run any kind of water lines out there or anything?
I've talked to my county commissioners, and they're trying to work on something, but they were quoted a rough estimate of about $30 million to bring water lines out.
I didn't know if Georgia Power had offered.
No, they have not.
Okay.
They're not offering anything at this point. So.
They're excavating some ponds in the state, but they're not excavating Plant Share, and we want to know why.
House Bill 756. I'm gonna hear it in committee. It'll come to our committee, and we're gonna hear some testimony and information about it. So I'm looking forward to getting information. This is the first, really. I don't know all what this is, but really looking for some data information.
So I have strontium, barium, sulfate, and hexavalent chromium. Wow.
Sounds like scary stuff.
It is. It's very, very scary stuff.
We've reached out to the EPD, we've reached out to the representative, we've reached out to local. Our next step as a governor, we need help. The contamination is coming from the ash pond being submerged into our aquifer. That's the reason our water is contaminated. If it wasn't for the ash pond being in the groundwater in our aquifer, our water would be fine.
Feeding the pets, the livestock, watering the gardens. We need water. We cannot use our tap water anymore.
So we want the ash pond excavated. We want it put in a line facility like yours, and my trash at my house gets put in. I throw banana peels and stuff in my trash. I throw tea bags in my trash, and I can't go just dump it in my yard. It has to go to a lined landfill. Toxic coal ash could be just dropped right into the aquifer at my house. Because that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do. They want to cap it and leave it in place forever. We want it out.
People are dying. They've got cancer. They couldn't even come to speak today.
We had 15 families on Luther Smith Road. 9 had cancer. 6 died. 3 are still fighting cancer. That is out of 15 families. A small little road. It's not even a mile long.
It's a community, and it's not just Juliette.
This is a Georgia problem.
That's right.
There are 19 other ash ponds.
Monroe County is pretty Republican.
It does seem to us that Brian Kemp has the ability to compel EPD to look at this legitimately. I know that Ms. Loeffler was on the board of directors for Georgia Power. It seems that even at the very least the two of them could get together and make something happen.
How many people in here voted for Brian Kemp and are Republican?
How many people will convert to Democrat if we don't get enough help?
I was just saying if there was someone that we should reach out to with our policy folks and get more information from y'all, then we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I'll write my name on here.
So is it not possible to see him today?
I'm sorry, ma'am. He has a back-to-back schedule. So
What about tomorrow?
I'm not able to commit to that. So
He can't be reached. And it's a shame because I elected him.
Ditto.
Ditto.
I want to support a Republican Party that sits on their hands while this happens.
Bottom line, this shouldn't be a partisan issue. This shouldn't even be a political issue. This is a moral issue. We need to do the right thing. I think just enough fire in the belly.
EPD's not going to do anything. These legislators aren't going to do anything. What they're going to do is they're going to hit me and say that this is all a political stunt. That we're trying to flip Monroe County, right? Like that. I mean, I had 2 reporters call over and be like, they're trying to paint you as like doing this, and I'm like, trying to flip Monroe County into like changing y'all into a bunch of liberals. They're gonna start attacking me. It's all a distraction from the issue. It's obvious. It is submerged in the aquifer. The standard for the close in place is that it cannot be in contact with groundwater. It cannot have even the possibility of coming into contact with groundwater. And they're going to store it 25 feet into the aquifer. And we have proof of that, and they're wanting more proof. Next thing, they're going to be wanting blood samples from y'all, right? And trying to prove that away, right? And so,
if these bills don't pass, if we're not able to like really spell it out in big block letter crayon for the people that can't read the existing federal law, Georgia EPD will issue the permit to close in place. Georgia Power would then have a shield saying, oh, well, we have a legal permit to sit here and pollute the groundwater in perpetuity and be a good neighbor doing it, but we have a legal permit to do that, and so you can't touch us. And y'all are across the street from the entrance to the plant, correct?
Right.
Okay, all right. I will see you in about 5, maybe 6 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, so look, you're SCH 33. It is tied at the very highest that we have found so far.
The worst?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations to us. What's going on?
Y'all are directly in between the ash pond and the river, right? And that's when I came out here, I told you that's what I was worried about, right? And it's a deep well, right?
350 feet.
I've been told.
Essentially, there's only 2 states in the union that have put a limit on hexavalent chromium. Georgia's obviously not one of them, right? California, based on the Brockovich case, decided that the 1 in a million cancer risk is 0.02.
We have 10.4.
You're at about 1 in 2,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 in 2,000.
I was hoping for better.
Right.
We've been drinking it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right now a cancer survivor. I mean, I've been 1 year from treatments as of next month.
I mean, that's the biggest one in the country. You know, like
I just wish we understood more about, how a company that's governed by the Public Service Commission, guaranteed a profit, but yet they can go out and they can buy all these hundreds and thousands of acres and homes around here and tear them down or renovate them for other usage of their own or let people hunt on the property. But yet then they say, well, we're through. This is as far as we're going. I mean, they bought property on one side of me, property behind me. You got to justify, in my opinion, the Public Service Commission ought to be held accountable to make them justify what they're doing and why they're doing it.
I agree.
So.
When they have bought the property, they tear the house down and they fill the well with concrete almost immediately within 24 hours, 48 hours. So that's devastating to this community. What Georgia Power has done in doing this has admitted guilt, in my opinion.
It's like acres and acres of land that they've bought. And I mean, it's right down the road from our house. And so I mentioned that I took my 5-year-old to the doctor. I was driving home from the doctor's appointment, already kind of shooken up about what could be going on. What, have I been giving my girls contaminated water for all these years, and just kind of internally freaking out. But she's in the back seat, and I didn't want to, concern her, and I still don't want her to be really worried. And then I drive by where those houses were, and I see that sign, and I'm just like, it hit me like that's half of a mile from our house. And I guess it wasn't until that point that I realized how close all of the contaminated water issues are to us.
What's up,
hey man, what's going on?
Not a whole lot.
They didn't detect any chromium-3.
Mm-hmm.
They only detected the hexchrome, right?
And that's not naturally occurring.
Correct, like 100% hex chrome is industrial pollution.
All right. Well, that gives us a good starting point.
Thank you for doing this.
Well, I mean, you know, we've got more answers than we had, but we still don't have anywhere close to the answers. You know, just feel like I just like have to keep doing this, you know what I mean, at the pace that I'm doing it.
What are people's alternatives? Where do you move against somebody like Georgia Power, you know, when you're running into this?
There's legal avenues that y'all can take, you know, that's an option. There is legislative stuff that we're trying to get them to excavate and remove.
You know, you've heard it all, and I've heard it all. I've talked to an awful lot of people who've sold out or what's been going on, and I've heard a lot of things, hearsay, about, you know, what Georgia Power will and will not do.
There's a lot of urban legends and everything like that.
Yeah, well, I talked to people specifically, not like
Okay.
it's not like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't hear from the next guy, but he was really surprised, and this was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he was really surprised that I was down here, because he told me Georgia Power wanted everything between them and the river.
I bet they did.
And now, but they've never approached us. You know, they've never approached us.
So they got a lot
Okay.
of media
All right.
heat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So they got a lot of media heat when they started buying this house, and they stopped. Right? And so
Yeah, it was too.
you know, it was not a good
To be
look.
honest, I don't want to be the elephant in the room, but I don't know how many black families have not been approached by Georgia Power. It's more whites being approached and Fall property and all around us. No blacks is being represented. I haven't heard any black person that's been offered no more than Reverend Jared, Cleveland Jared. That's the only one. You're talking about charging us to be able to put water to our property. Why would we pay for water that they're contaminated? That's the same question we've been asking for years. My daughter got sick 23 years ago from the water. We've been dealing with this right here for over 28 years.
We're dealing with a gigantic utility with the most powerful lobby in the state saying this is the way that it is and this is the way that we want it to go, and you're dealing with a government that wants to say, all right, yes sir, we'll do that. But what we're trying to tell those lawmakers and regulators is that what you're proposing does not follow the rule of law. And what we're trying to do right here is save everybody a whole lot of time and money and heartache, right? Because we're going to get there. We're not going anywhere. These citizens in Juliette are not going to shut up.
We want the ponds to be excavated, and we want clean water for the people in this community.
I'd like to know what you expect the county commissioner to do. We had a meeting the other night.
Right.
And this just came on me in the last 3 weeks. I didn't know fly ash from wet ash, any of that stuff about it. I've researched a lot since you brought that up. And we got our state people to come down and sit down.
Right.
And this was what, last Thursday?
Right.
All right. My main concern is if we got bad water out there, I want to get water to the people out there.
Right.
But the only way that we can get water out there, we can't, Georgia Power admitted it'd be 10 to 12 years before they get this done, whether they line it or they put the dome on it. In the meantime, if all our citizens out here have got bad well water, we've only got one way to get water to them. And I hate to say this, but that's raise the millage rate and let's put the water in.
Do any of y'all want to pay for running water lines to me because Georgia Power contaminated my well?
Let me ask you something. Do you realize all y'all people in here, they're taxpayers in Monroe County? Do you realize you're subsidizing the water system in Monroe County right now? So why don't we tax and put everybody on water, because heaven knows when they're going to get this problem fixed.
Hey, why don't you take the money you get from Georgia Power on taxes and pay for the water line?
Mr. Ambrose, you asked, what do you want me to do? That was one of the first things you said when you stood up. What do you want me to do? I want you to do something. Something.
It's depreciated my property. I can't even begin to think about selling my property now. Nobody wants to buy this property. So it's basically, and I don't want to move because, I mean, I was raised here. And so it means a hell of a lot to me that I was able to buy this property and make this my, forever home. So, but now it's, I don't foresee me spending the rest of my life here because it's too much of a risk to my health and to my children's health.
I'm going as fast as I can.
We're going as fast as we can. We have 2 more bottles. 2 more bottles.
This is not talking about saving some kind of rare salamander. This is about people's lives, and that's just a different thing. When most people think of environmental issues, they think, oh, it's like some tree hugger out here trying to, save some rare species, and it's not. I'm trying to save people. We were having very regular, very largely attended community town halls in Juliette and the surrounding area, and we're really building momentum. But then COVID-19 came, and the governor issued a shutdown order. There was apparently a meeting with higher ups in leadership where they decided to essentially kick the can. So the hearings that we were promised in both the House and the Senate, they completely backed out of those promises. And the lead sponsor on the House bill now has $1 million being spent against him in the state House race, which I think is a Georgia record.
Where are we today?
Monroe County. I want to welcome y'all all here. Glad you come down to see what we're all about today.
What are we all about? What are these pipes?
Sure. So this is the start of a $16 to $17 million project to bring clean water to the residents around Lake Juliette.
We're very happy that our county commissioners have understood what's going on and are moving in the direction of getting us all water, but it does not stop there. People have said, well, why isn't that enough? And the reason it isn't enough is because there are 15 million tons of coal ash sitting in my backyard that are contaminating the waters in this community, and something needs to be done about that.
I'm just thinking about the future. I'm going to be part of the past soon, and it just worries me about, the future. Will it ever be good water again?